talk about the septic sewer conversion issue that we have been studying, and that's another strong issue. Go ahead.
Right, so last year, well, at the end of, 2019, we conducted a community issues survey, wanted to know what everybody was interested in us working on and us helping with. And septic to sewer water quality was one of the big issues for us. So we put together a septic to sewer conversion committee to investigate what it would take to convert some of our existing septic tanks on the island to a sewer using our existing capacity, whether we needed to expand capacity, and really kind of generally looking at those issues. We've provided a summary of these efforts to Pam Keyes, the Director of the County Utilities. They oversee the wastewater management treatment plant we've got down in St. James City. And then in December, she spoke to our meeting and gave us kind of the update. The county is going through a whole county-wide wastewater management plan. That is based on let's see, I want to get the name right here. The Calusa Cay River and Estuary Basin Management Action Plan. It's a FEMA. The county is, and you might fill me in a little bit here, the county is required to look at wastewater treatment countywide and have a plan in place to improve water quality, and I believe that's a DEP regulation. And unfortunately, we're not in that basin management action area. So while we have protected estuaries, we're not considered by the DEP as part of that basin management area. And so we've asked that the county move us up and take our issues here seriously and raise us in importance, because we've got these protected estuaries that water quality is suffering in. Our fish, our dolphins, you name it, they all depend on it. And so we've asked Commissioner Remain and Pam Keyes to move us up the list in terms of priority. And we also want to encourage Lee County to do what they can, and I think this is something Kevin's going to talk about, do what they can in terms of finding grants and state and federal funding support for septic to sewer conversion. We know it's going to be expensive. We know not everybody on the island can afford it, and many of us can't. And so we want to see ways that it's financially feasible. We want improved water quality, but we don't want to force people to move out, in order to have it.
So water quality was an issue that I ran on and been very much involved in. Yeah, clean up your own backyard. I've really found a map of Pine Island septic systems. Everything in red are what we would designate as suspect septic systems that potentially are leaching or breaching. So there's 4,561. And it's in black and white. So the first aspect of this is there's a significant cost in doing so. We instructed our strategic planning meeting, the county, to identify all areas, that's why I have a map, where we have an opportunity to correct this situation. The good news is there is a lot of money from a grant point of view. It's not going to pay for it all, but there's a lot of money. The governor has allocated $150 million a year that we can go and advocate for to have septic be converted to sewer. So our job has been to identify where our biggest breaches and leaches are, because those are impacting water quality. I've certainly been in Tallahassee more times than I can think of, having been in office now 15 years. Certainly know my way around the legislators, and I can certainly tell you I'm a professional bagger. That's what you do when you go to Tallahassee. And I've been in Washington, I've testified before Congress, and certainly understand the opportunities there. This year we've identified exactly what we want to try to achieve. Your area certainly is on our plan to certainly go and try to get whatever money we can. But the second aspect of that will come up with the cost. we'll determine what we believe we can do. We'll tell you exactly what grant dollars we can get. There's going to be a shortfall. And the way to do that is with the municipal servicing tax unit and STU. And there's a lot of ways to do that. We can certainly lay the money out. You can pay it monthly. There's many different creative ways of trying to address the situation. But I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that I'm going to be able to achieve and receive grants enough for it to be a zero cost. That's personally impossible. And the interesting thing about my district is everything is water. So Cathedras, Santa Rosa, Southwest Cape is, Canaan is, and Broken Branch. Cathedras going through the same scenario you are. There's many areas in the Southwest Cape that certainly need to be converted as well. There's certain areas in Broken that need to be converted in your area. So there will be a cost associated with it, but there's something that we want to try to achieve, at least identify, and we can start to come up with what that might look like for the cost. But that's the news, that's the update I can tell you. And the good news is with this governor, he has allocated $150 million a year. He's done that for the last 3 years, and this year the budget's there. Because the economy is doing so well, the budget is certainly very robust. We'll go up and do everything we can to try to bring home. Our job is to try to bring money here. We all pay money to the state of Florida. Our job is to try to bring it back home to ease the burden of you, the taxpayer. We certainly understand that my district is completely surrounded by water, and I understand the challenge. So my area has the greatest benefit. The good news is some of the central parts do not have the same needs, so we're not trying to do the same dollars. We can do that. Or all the benefits which help our economy, which has a compounding effect.
Passed a law for a legislature passed a law for regular, and I don't know the frequency, but regular inspection of septic tanks to test basically. And that either didn't pass or was passed and not signed. I don't remember the particulars. But when you come down to now, your identification of Pine Island, 4,561 septic tanks that are not, that are suspect. How were those identified if there is no inspection?
So the process we go through is we work with every wastewater plant, identifying where they are. So the inspection that you talk about did take place. So there was a piece of legislation, it was just reviewed. Okay, so septic system has X number of years of life, depending on where it's located, depending on how it's maintained. So when we say suspect, okay, we're using some from physical evaluations and some from just pure scientific useful life of what a septic system is and maintained properly. So I'm not saying it's perfect science, but it's where we're going to start to say where we potentially have issues. And I would guess that there'll be 20 or 30% of that number to be inaccurate, but that's just a starting point. We need to start someplace to say, okay, what's our worst case scenario? And I'd rather go to the legislature to indicate we have 4,500 cases and ask for more money. So if they grant me the money and I have to apply for 3,000, it goes where it was associated with a 5-year or it was probably chase things, whatever the structure. So that's what it was. Unfortunately, it was appealed 7 years ago. I've been in office for 15 years. I do remember the past. I do remember it was appealed. As you can imagine, the hardship it has when you sell your property, if you have a breaching septic system, you then have those proceeds taken out of your closing to correct that situation and or replace the system.
Is that map available online?
I'm going to have it available online. I just received it operation to the absolutely.
So Kevin, following up on Ellen's comment, it was my understanding that when that law was repealed, that the state then referred to the counties to make.
Jeff, can you talk into the microphone? People can't hear you back here.
It was my understanding that when the state law was repealed, that it was deferred to the counties to
to indicate whether they were going to have an inspection or not. That's not the case?
No, okay, because the reason it was repealed by our legislators, see, we fight for home rule. What I do is fight for your, legislators believe they know more than we do. So they basically said it was unconstitutional, that's why they repealed it, because the financial hardship is the reason. So to shift the burden on the state to let us be able to do that, the same underlying conditions still is there for the financial aspect of it. So, and they are forever getting in our business to try to tell us how to rule, you know, obviously govern Lee County. Why you're part of an association, why we're part of Lee County is we don't want the legislators to have one formula fit all 67 counties. Just so you know.
Thanks for the
Sure.
We have a microphone there, Cindy has. Can I talk
Will the sewer take care of the problem, or what percentage of the problem is coming from the leaking septic? Are we gonna have clean water if we do this?
Well, sewer is 100%, you know, it is 100% pure. We should go through two different things. Having gone through full conversion of sewer on Sanibel, there's two aspects of the wastewater plant. One also takes the affluent water and removes nitrogen phosphate, which is the damaging parts of the water. So some people reuse water, reclaim water, but again, it has to pass, EMAPS has to pass certain tests to make sure the water is clean. So that's what we do.
So if we do the sewer, we will have clean water.
Correct.
We have clean water coming out of the plant, but that doesn't mean the water is gonna find out.
So let's understand what water quality is, okay? So water quality has many aspects to it. One is fertilization. Someone asked me, it was surprised we have a fertilizer program. So the fertilizer program is a blackout period from June to March. Okay? That also requires everyone to be good stewards of their property. You want green lawns, you fertilize, you need that not to have fertilizer with nitrogen phosphate. If you're doing it in July and I don't catch you, and it's rainy season, you live near the water, it's going to go in the water. That's going to affect water quality. That's issue number one. Anybody, stormwater runoff, we'll do that. You wash your car, the chemicals, you have whatever, it goes in the sewer, that's going to end up, you know, unfortunately in time. The third, obviously, is septic, which is the biggest part. So, to re-clarify my answer, it's going to significantly do that. If you follow all the things for improved water quality, and you're all good stewards, you'll have a greater chance having come and lived on an island for the last 14 years of having clean water.
One more question. Sure. Rather than sort of penalizing the entire island, it's a very disruptive and expensive process. Conversion, why would the homeowners be responsible for their individual septic systems?
What they are, and what the legislature said was that I then place the burden on you, and you don't have the financial means to do it, how do we fix it? Does your neighbor pay for yours? No, but that was the reason why the legislators banned that, because I can tell you, in every community that I govern for, there's people that can afford to do the conversion. There's people that can't afford to do it. And right now, we're looking at a cost in Cathedral, without grants, probably close to $30,000. With grants, it could come down to 10 per home.
Some states up north, it's a policy when you have a home inspection and closing that if you have a failing septic system, it's got to be replaced, repaired. Same as a bad roof, dry well, or other dangerous things that don't meet code. Could the county pass some sort of county-wide ordinance that at closing that the homes would have to have a...
So again, the reason why that law was repealed was the legislature said that it was passing an unfair burden onto that person. You can, as a taxpayer, certainly require, or if I buy your home and I know you have a septic, part of what is just based on the water quality, I would inspect your septic. I would have an individual company come out and inspect your sewer, your septic system, and if it failed, you and I would have a conversation to resolve that.
So it could be an educational thing,
Very much it is.
try and do public relations programs, you know, get your home inspected before you buy it.
Well, I mean,
Buyer beware.
Well, it's certainly something that you can have a responsibility for, but the legislators, I can tell you one thing, when we pass local legislation, they have the ability to repeal whatever we want to do local. We've got the message very clear, but I'm still going to go to Tallahassee and still try to get that put that on the books. You know, I believe that we're truly true to water quality, it should be.
I'm totally curious about where the infrastructure of the sewer is on Pine Island. Do we have anything going up Stringfellow? Where does it start?
Great question.
I know the answer.
So my guess is what Noah would have said was it starts in Mount Shea, goes through St. James. But I would have to look at the plans that we have in the county. I've not looked at those.
No, that's right. It does.
Sewer station is right outside here.
The lift station is here in the center, and then it travels north to St. James City, where, do you know where the St. James Post Office is? Sorry, Sal, thank you. It's near there. So that treats some homes in Cherry Estates, all of Mount Lachey, well, I thought there were two, an older and a newer version. Anyway, no, there is no sewer line down to Bokeelia. There's no sewer. We're all septic down there, and it also treats like the Winn-Dixie area, so some of that commercial.
So the other reason why I wouldn't know, quite frankly, is my job is to make policy decisions. So what I rely on the staff to give me the intel on how it is and what it is and the inspections of it. My job is to make policies and make it better. I will tell you there's 814 square miles in the county. We have 9,200 employees. Unfortunately, I don't know every aspect of the county.
So basically, it would be a massive undertaking when we put a sewer system in that goes up Stringfellow Road to accommodate all the communities on either side of that.
So having been on an island that did it, you do it a section at a time. You can't do it all at once.
Oh, absolutely not. I
And
understand
quite
that.
frankly, what you do is you try to plan it and you try to do what is going to have the greatest impact first. It's really what you try to do. And again, they're just designs and suggestions.
Do you have the timetable list for PMP's study on the
Sorry.
county-wide sewer?
I should have it in the next 60 days.
For 60 days? Good.
Yeah, so we had a strategic meeting in February. This is our number 2 priority. We need to be prepared for the legislation. It's going up. Legislators getting together and through the later season this year or the early season this upcoming year. So we have to have it ready. What I need to do is sit down with local legislators to talk about what we're going to present. We need someone to sponsor a bill on the House side. We need someone to sponsor a bill on the Senate side. That's how you get money. So it's essential that I have it as soon as humanly possible.
There's a question back here.
Just concerning the water quality, the putting in sewers out here to control any leakage from septic and whatnot will improve water quality some, but I think that's a drop in the bucket compared to the Cape Coral effluent that's getting into the canals and coming out where the Cedar Barriers is. Is there any chance of getting any of that federal funding to put in place an effort to put the Cedar Barriers out?
Sure. I mean, not only am I going to Tallahassee, but I will certainly go to Washington to do that. Having been the mayor and having worked with 5 other mayors, the new mayor of Cape Coral certainly seems to be someone that I can talk to and reason with. You know, there's been an ongoing dispute for quite some time, but we're all trying to work on water quality. So by all means, I'm not just going to ask for the state, I'm going to ask for the federal government. We pay a lot more in federal taxes than we do state taxes.
Okay, it looks like there's one more question and then we need to move on to our next. New resident, please.
Okay, yeah, new resident, so, sorry for the dumb question. It's twofold. If you're putting sewers in, is that gonna make it so you can have more development? That's one question. I think
Keep talking to Mike.
Sorry. If you put in sewers, does that promote development, more development? And another thing I noticed since being here is that the drainage ditches seem to be in disrepair. And from your experience, if we were to maintain those better, would it help the water quality somehow? It just seems logical that if you're flooding in an area, the septic systems have to, even if they're functioning, are not going to function in those conditions.
Correct. Well, your first question about overdevelopment is something that you have in your plan here. It's something that is on the agenda as an item. We try to control permits. We try to make sure they're active. This board brought to my attention permits that are still leaning out there. We're going through a process of policy change to make sure the applications are addressed. So one way to deal with overpopulation is to make sure you don't give people more than ample time to address a development. But to your second question, by all means, cleaning those and maintaining those is going to improve. The problem you have with any septic system is where it reaches and where it reaches out. If you don't do something with that after the problem.
Right. And as a homeowner, is it okay for me to go and clean out the ditch near
Absolutely.
bordering my property?
Absolutely.
Thank you.